The film board gathers. The gang of thugs is here to take on a movie currently in theaters in this month. Hey, do you ever wonder what it would be like if we all trusted AI? If we could work with these creations to build more great things, to solve hunger and teach our children, to work together in harmony? Well, wonder no more, because Gareth Edwards thinks the Americans wouldn't be able to handle it and would just build bigger tanks. Welcome to The Creator.
When the war started, they protected me. Took better care of me than humans would have.
They're not people, Maya. It's just programming.
10 years ago today, the artificial intelligence created to protect us
detonated a nuclear warhead in Los Angeles. This is a fight for our very existence.
Sergeant Taylor, we are this close to winning the war. But the AI are developing a super weapon. Retrieve it, or they win.
Did you locate the weapon?
Yeah, it's just a kid.
Are you going to heaven?
No. You gotta be a good person to go to heaven.
So we're the same. We can't go to heaven because you're not good. And I'm not a person.
Welcome, ye AI creations. Please give me a full diagnostic rundown of the servos in your skull. JJ.
Oh, controversial opinions coming forth, especially on AI.
Yeah, I can't wait for this. Tommy Metz. Hello, handsome.
Hello, and beep and boop. May I get out first? Just a beep and a boop to both of you.
Beep and a boop to, I doff my boop to you, sir. Look, we saw The Creator. We just saw it. Did you see it just today, Tom, as we record this, or was it yesterday?
I did. I saw it at 12:30 today, so I'm coming in hot.
Oh, so are we. Outstanding. So this is hot, very fresh opinions, and as we say, usually too late in the podcast, we are going to be spoiling the movie. So consider ye spoiler horn blown. Let's just talk briefly about The Creator. I'm gonna give our little summary and then we can give our opening thoughts. The year, dear friends, is 2065. LA is still glowing from the nuke an AI allegedly dropped a decade back. U.S. undercover agent Josh Taylor lives in New Asia, where robots aren't outlawed, but not for long. The military blows his cover and makes his pregnant wife go poof, Copperfield style. 5 years later, Josh is ordered to find the AI overlord, Nirmata, and just maybe save his not-so-dead wife. But Nirmata's big bad weapon is a 6-year-old girl. Surprising no one, Josh goes rogue to protect the kid and track down his missing spouse, all leading to the shortest sliding doors of a family reunion in history. Robots 1, Americans 0.
Is that really what happened, though?
What?
Or is that just the description?
It's all a simulation.
Of what was intended.
Yeah, that might be what was intended.
Okay,
let's go into it. So let's open with the controversial opinions. JJ, opening thoughts. What did you think of The Creator?
Well, so straight away, I'll tell you, I liked it actually, but I think it's crazy and quite a bit of a mess. Because just as you read with the story there is a story here, and there are different twists and turns that seem to be indicated in the way that you described here. But I think that close watching or even sort of some reading into the behaviors of the characters / actors of what we're seeing on screen could lead us to interpret this in many different ways. And I don't mean in a cool, like humanities, like what's the meaning of the film kind of way, kind of like a what's actually happening here on screen.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of that on John David Washington. You know, he played protagonist. It was really wonderful. We can talk about that more, but I think a lot of the controversial opinions will be about AI, but trying to make sense of this movie might be pretty difficult in terms of character motivations and character anything. But that being said, I started off by saying I liked it because it didn't make me angry. It just made me confused.
Tom, you were the one going into this. You were the one who, when we were deciding what to do this month just a couple of days ago, because the movie we were going to do this month actually didn't open, you were the one who said, okay, I'll see this. Like it wasn't a resounding enthusiasm that you met with this movie.
Having said that, I'm extremely glad that this movie exists.
Oh.
Because anything big budgety like this that isn't about existing AI, IP, I did it, about existing IP, AI IP, is thrilling. And, the window for that is rapidly closing all around us. And so that's great. And for a while, I thought it was pitch perfect. I was like, oh, I am watching a masterpiece. And it was, Garth is able to do something that almost no directors of his scope are able to do. We can talk about that later. And then as it kept going, it got messier and messier, and more crucial dialogue was delivered off camera. Never intense. A good sign.
You don't like that.
Never a good sign. That means things were put back together in post. And by the end of it, I found it to be extremely frustrating, but mainly because of the heights from where it fell. So I don't know exactly if that's fair to judge a movie harsher because it started so well. But no, by the end of it, I was done.
Wow.
But I'm glad I saw it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I saw it.
For sure. I went into this movie. I mean, when you look at the only reading I had done about the movie going into it was what Edwards had cited as his inspirations for this movie. And I had seen the trailer, so I knew it was an AI robot-y thing. Apocalypse Now, Baraka, Blade Runner, Akira, Rain Man, The Hit, E.T., and Paper Moon. Like he dropped those movies.
No Avatar.
And
Chappie.
No Children of God. No.
Right. Children of Men.
No, sorry. Children of Men. Yes.
Yeah. No, they weren't in there, but I also saw those movies in there too, right? Clearly he was thinking about them. But I find that either really promising, sitting down in the movie, or possibly pre-damning the film, because he's calling out some real greats. What I got in the first act, second act, I guess chapter, as they did those little chapter breaks, was really great in the beginning. And it felt a little bit like in the editing room, there was somebody standing behind his editor and Edwards and just like clapping, come on, let's go, pick it up,
right?
Pick it up.
Oh,
because by
gosh,
the third act of this movie, it was a disaster of pacing. This was not like clever Christopher Nolan, let's play with time. This is, we're in a rush to finish this thing, and so we're going to compress time in ways that make no sense to anyone. And
everyone can be anywhere at any time.
Anywhere they want at any time. Yep. And this was the interesting thing. We walked out with a friend of the show, Kurt Sifford, and we both agreed this was a movie that did end. I enjoyed the ending of the movie. I felt like the way the movie ended was satisfying. It's the Swiss cheese that got me there that is troublesome. And somewhere, dear God, please let there be a 3-hour director's cut of this movie that we get to see finished, because this was unfinished. It is gorgeous. The motion capture, the whatever they did to make those robots worked incredibly. I never questioned the gear stuff in their heads, nothing. But man, the pacing was a disaster.
So those were the cyborg robots, and I would actually send sort of some kudos to the half and half robots.
All the robots
that had,
I loved them the most.
Amazing anthropomorphic mannerisms. I was shocked at how human the non-humans were in this movie.
Totally.
Is it possible that they just, and this isn't a joke, just put a green hood over there? Because I mean, their bodies were always in full outfits. So he actually made steps forward by taking it way back. And instead of saying, if we don't show the whole body, we don't need to animate the whole body. And that's what doesn't work.
Well, and this was an interesting thing, right? Like when you talk about his test shoot for this is what he says about his test shoot. I took a camera and a 1970s anamorphic lens, and we went location scouting in Vietnam, Cambodia, Japan, Indonesia, Thailand, and Nepal. Our whole plan was to go to the greatest locations in the world because the cost of a flight is way less than the cost of building a set. We're going to hopscotch around the world and shoot this film, then layer in the science fiction on top of it. If our film is trying to achieve something visually, it is trying to feel real in terms of science fiction. To me, it lands.
I love that.
Yeah, I thought it was very immersive. Very immersive.
Why did they cut up the story like that? Because it's exactly what you're talking about. You have that. I love your image of someone saying, let's pick it up. Because constantly everything was rushed in terms of the story.
Yeah.
there was no development. And, I was making the joke about John David Washington as protagonist because you kind of have this sort of non-character that serves as the lens, the window to what's happening in the story, but doesn't have any personal journey whatsoever. Moves with whatever story momentum is happening at that particular moment, and is some sort of machine of the story. There is nothing for him in this movie. And I mean, it's just, I think it's ironic that in Tenet his name was protagonist, because he shows up here. It's the same way.
Well, take a step back though, JJ. I mean, I find John David Washington incredibly charismatic on screen.
Yeah.
I really like him as an actor. But your point, has he ever been playing anything other than John David Washington?
No.
Like, can you think of a movie where you're like, my God, his performance was transformed?
Evidently not. I mean, and that's the thing. I like the actor too. I didn't like this character though. I didn't understand any motivation for this character whatsoever. There is an assumed self from the beginning about whether he is doing X thing as an undercover person or X thing as a rebel fighter. And it becomes the Total Recall of, now I'm joining Quato. I mean, there really isn't any motivation for this character whatsoever. And that's pretty terrible, I think.
There was that one afternoon they spent walking on the beach for B-roll all day.
and he left it captured in his phone. I don't know.
It was like the motion Polaroid. That was clever. I like that. Tom, did you share that opinion about JD Dubs?
I am unfortunately not a fan.
Oh.
I don't really find him terribly magnetic. Some of it might be that he is such a voice facsimile of his father.
Yeah.
That I can't not compare the two.
Oh, that first scene, I literally thought it was his father. And I was like, what face did they put on his father for it?
Yeah. I think he's lacking a lot of subtlety or layers. It's pretty much, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm screaming, I'm crying. And those are the options. And you just sort of have to motivate between those two, between those.
That's kind of what I like about him though, because he's like the fried tofu of the cast. Like, of every movie that he's in, because he takes on the flavor of the movie around him for me.
The sauce better be pretty good.
Yeah, right. Well, totally. Right. And I think you get that in the first two acts of the movie. I like the way he does the amputee stuff. I like his they have the fancy appendages they give him. I like all of that. Like, I think I really enjoy just watching the way he moves in this film, and it just becomes such a circus of cuts at the end that it's like you lose track of who's on screen and who's where. But I actually really liked the beats, like the performative beats that we get with him when the only time he smiles with Gemma Chan in bed together before everything goes to hell, and then at the end when Alfie and he are standing with the with the glass of the escape pod between them. That moment I thought was very strong performatively. Like, take all the sci-fi spaceship stuff out of it. These are two people who discover each other's sort of truth, and I see that on screen. I thought that was a powerful moment. So like those two moments in the film kind of tie the performance together. It's a little bit unfortunate that he is playing opposite this little girl who I really liked. Like, she just stole so much.
I have some questions about the story here. I agree with you about the child actor, by the way. I was very impressed with the emotion. I believed the child actor the entire time, which I think was wonderful. But I'm confused about the story, about whether Alfie, the child, is the child of Joshua, John David Washington's character. Is he
sort
father?
Of
or
in the way of, she took like a digital scan of it.
So,
she was able to make it
meaning Maya,
your mother,
Maratu, Nimrado, Squatter Rapo,
Maya,
right? Maya in the most loving relationship where they spend no time together because he's an undercover detective and she's making a robot in the shed, and neither of them know anything's going on because all they do is meet on the beach
we had our
in their same
secrets.
outfits and spin around.
We had our secrets was a line in the movie. But anyway, keep going.
All right, look, when you say it, it
guess.
sounds so stupid, but I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
I know. But yeah, from what I could tell, she made the most that you can human of a robot.
Okay.
Like they took what the baby was going to be, and then she made it into a robot because she was pregnant for real in the shed,
but
off screen.
So before she actually died as a pregnant person, she had already copied the embryo. It's very confusing
Apparently.
to me, and
it's very confusing.
But she did. That's the thing. She didn't. Like what we don't know is what happened in the 5-year intervening time where she was in a coma plugged into all the machines. What work had she done that allowed them to carry on and actually make this thing? Right. That's what filled in my head was she got it started and it took on a life of its own and thereby made Alfie.
Right, which I think is great,
and that's why they plugged her into a giant into a giant like biodome with a TV because they didn't know what to do with her with mom gone.
Exactly, because now you messed up me on the name, Tom. The Nirmata didn't leave instructions for how to run the world once Nirmata created it. But the thing that
not even a which way do you put the batteries in?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's interesting is this actually harkens back to Logan for me in a very kind of strange way. Of that, in the Wolverine story, in that Logan story, there was no specific connection between Logan and the child, other than through genetics. But the story was so well executed and so well delivered and so well written that by the end of it, we were comfortable accepting their parent-child relationship. And I think that could have been another level for this film to go that seems like it's right there that no one's talking about. And I agree with you, Pete, about that last scene. I think it was powerful and emotional. So why aren't we talking about the fact that these two beings are connected in some intimate way?
Because it was cut by the clapping editor.
You're right.
I really feel like that.
I
feel like what they tried to resuscitate was just barely enough story to get to the 2-hour 13 mark because the movie demanded to be 3 hours.
Well, did you notice the amount of editors?
No.
3 editors.
That is a lot. Okay.
That's generally shorthand for someone was brought in to save something that was floundering.
Yeah, and
for one reason or another. And I'm not saying the original was bad, but maybe the studio just said no, it has to be 2 hours 15 minutes. That could be it. Or, I mean, there's as I said already, the sheer amount of off-camera dialogue as things become more and more and more important, and then dumber. Where you're like, oh, was studio audiences really confused about what was going on in this scene?
That was my question. Because every time I heard ADR, I was like, why did that audience member need to hear that? Because it almost seemed like it was unneeded. It was unnecessary ADR most of the time, at least from my perspective.
Someone needed it. I think the other piece to that is not just the ADR. A lot of the movie is a bit overwritten. Right. Even the words that are coming out of their mouths, I was having those questions. I like stuff that she said, Alfie said, to kind of explain how she feels about any given moment. She was already performing well enough to show me how she felt about any given moment. I like the mystery behind her interaction with the other robots to the point where I didn't need her to say anything at all. The movie was at its best when she was restrained. It allowed her to, when she did cry and show emotion, it was deeply earned because you knew she must really be feeling something incredible. And so I was confused by a lot of what they didn't trust me to feel.
And this is the weird thing. I think it's almost as if the script was written without the trust and faith that they could find a child actor that could deliver that.
True.
Because
that's a good
it
point.
was there. I think you make a great point in that, when you're having those feelings interactions with the Alfie character, you don't question what's happening. And maybe they didn't believe that they could get that from a child actor.
Actor was Madeline Una Voiles, name drop.
Wonderful.
Fantastic. fantastic young talent. I thought she was great.
Yeah.
Can we talk briefly about the world? I want to celebrate something I really love. So can we talk about how the science fiction world hit you?
Yes.
Please.
Mm-hmm. And I still want to say that I teased there's one thing that he does that other directors were not able to, that he lost control of. I just want to put that out there.
Does that fit here?
They're calling in.
I know you're already getting those
pouring
messages. Yeah, I hear it on the ticker tape behind you.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that right now? Would you like to get that?
Sure,
off your
I could
chest?
it's just
Okay.
one word, but
That's
it's
good.
the thing that it's also the thing that was missing in almost every trailer I saw, which we talked about with the Marvels. We talked about Aquaman. There were a couple more. He had restraint. He had restraint in the first third of the movie, where he could have thrown the camera around anywhere. He could have done all those things that I accuse DC and Marvel of doing ever since Peter Jackson directed The Hobbit. I feel like just let's film it all. And he really was very delicate about it in such a beautiful way. And then, yeah, the opening of the old newsreel footage was outstanding.
Perfect.
And how
world
it
building.
seamlessly became from this is what we thought the future was. Oh wait, we're in the future now. It's still things look really cool. The way that they measured up, and then his use. It's who directed District 19, District 17.
Peter Jackson, right?
No. It's I think it's his protege. It's the same guy that did Chappie.
That's why. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I thought all those were Peter Jackson.
Neil Blomkamp.
Blomkamp.
They do the same thing, which is so rarely found in movies like this. They film during the daylight and use that to bolster the reality of the world. Generally, like in Blade Runners, things like that, you hide in the shadows. But because he filmed so practically and, like you said, filmed in real places versus building CGI worlds, that it just was remarkably realistic and immersive. Right
well,
away.
and I love that you brought up Neil Blomkamp, because that District 9 had it really does have that feel for it, which was the, again, shooting in the day. I never once questioned any of the technology as possibly not existing. Right. It was beautiful. I mean, it just really well integrated. JJ, I'm sorry I interrupted.
No. That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, it harkens back to that. I actually, especially we talk about the non-human characters here, and that reminded me so much of District 9. I was right there, square in that world again.
In terms of the rest of the tech, though, I mean, I kind of lean on you, Tom, because I know how you don't really truck in these movies. Did you find yourself enjoying the experience? Are there other movies that you think of, like when you're talking about District 9, you're talking about Blade Runner? Do you like those movies, that kind of science fiction?
Yeah, because it feels very grounded. It feels real. It feels dirty. A lot of times when they make these movies, they forget that not everything should be shiny. These are machines that this isn't in a lot of these movies. It's like the first time any of these machines, any of these guns, any of these outfits have ever been worn in the world of the film. And instead these have been used like all these people. Everything's kind of dirty and messy and scuffed up. And that really just adds to the vermilicitude of it. The only thing that I had, if there was trouble with some of the stuff, and this is when it was squarely getting more and more messy and repetitive, the gigantic tanks.
Yeah.
That managed to that one tank is the size of a football stadium and yet sneaks up behind half the cast. They're like, what? It's over there. And it's like, it's a blimp. It is a Zeppelin behind them crashing through everything. And they're like, yoink. Yeah, that's when it just starts to be like, oh, you're doing great. Whoever told you it needs to be bigger, 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 don't listen to them. You're doing great. You had restraint. And then, yeah.
This takes me
all the stuff about the Vietnam. I mean, it reminded, I love that he said Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Because when they were like going to that first city, I wanted to be like, hey, no fortunate son. I was waiting for the entire Forrest Gump soundtrack to start.
Well, how about that Radiohead music cue and the first planes coming down over cover of night? I lost my mind. It was so well put there. Everything in its right place. I just was like, I was so in the first third of this movie. I think Pete, you said it was pitch perfect. I think it was really. That's Tommy. There you go. But the thing here, like, I was fully on with everything at the
Mhm.
beginning, and then it just sort of unwound itself into a confusing sort of tangle by the end.
Yeah. The tank. Obviously, I think as a counterpoint, I love the tanks. I thought the tanks were really
You
fun
did?
and silly, but I think it's because I'm already wired for giant tanks. I spent a lot of time talking about giant tank in Captain America, where we have Red Skull's giant tank that is big as a house, and right, like it's like a 4-story building. So seeing that it was sleek, it was like an improvement over what Red Skull had. I just thought it looked cool crawling over the landscape, and so I'm wired for that kind of sci-fi.
Sure.
It is funny though to me, like coming back to the climax of the movie, that I guess a lot of the beats of the movie are tropey. They feel tropey. The bonding between the mentor-mentee relationship, the savior stuff we've got going on, and then eventually we've got to go to the mothership to unravel the end of the movie. That's when I started thinking, okay, we're really going to do another mothership trope. Like, I'm kind of tired of going up to the mothership, and I get it. And they used it not just sort of in the narrative, but they explained it. They explained around it in the form of like economics. Like, we cannot build another one of these things. I liked those scenes where they were talking about just sort of the impracticality, how the stakes are so high. But if they don't want somebody shooting at it or trying to take it down, they probably shouldn't be putting laser blue giant targets on everything on the planet.
That ship had the most abandoned catwalks I've ever seen. Like, everything is based on that one ship, and then she's just like just running down. I mean, yeah, it was like, put one guy with one gun outside that door. Like, it just seems like they spent so much money they forgot to like go on ZipRecruiter and like get a couple more people to like man the most important ship in the entire.
Well, and it's a confusing vessel altogether, because it really was created for defense, but they're doing a lot of stuff up there that has really sort of nothing to do with that. I mean, there's a farm and
there's trees.
Yeah, there were
not trees, but like lettuce
there
plants.
sure weren't a lot of soldiers and a whole lot of other folks that needed to evacuate the moment that the thing was threatened.
Yes, it was the whole administrative staff. And then they left behind 4 guys who immediately got on the wrong side of a door.
That was sad. That was sad for them and their families. All right. But JJ, go ahead.
Well, I have a whole bunch of whys from the last third of the film. I mean, what was the reason why Joshua was walking over to one of the missiles? Like, we had a little bit of a countdown for him to go to one of the missiles that he needed Alfie to shut down, but he was actually going to be on a missile that was going to drop.
Was a little confusing because he had already like placed the bomb.
Exactly.
It would have made sense if he had to go there to that specific part to place the bomb, but the bomb was sort of already set up. And also, the war is over. Those bombs can destroy Nomad and those enormous stadium-sized tanks. Those bombs are what you need. You don't need all these other things.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. I need you to curse of recency. Where did he place the bomb?
It was
his explosive.
It was on an explosive, but he just then kept going, and like he was about to be dropped. It was very confusing.
Right. And so what I thought was he was getting on a bomb to put his explosive on it and then it started moving like beyond his control. Like, he was hanging on and he was like, oh God, now it's moving. I should not be here.
Oh, maybe that was it.
I thought it was an accidental placement.
Remember more feeling like this is a fake ticking clock.
That's how it felt to me.
Was the takeaway that I got.
I didn't get that. I really thought he was like he had screwed up. And that was the ticking clock, that his motivation was just to plant the bomb on something, a bigger bomb, and he didn't expect it to start moving the way it did.
There were a lot of ticking clocks in this movie that will turn off and turn back on as necessary for the thing to happen in the plot, for sure.
Yeah. Can we talk, please, about CJ Craig?
Oh, Allison Janney. She can do no wrong. I really liked her in this role. I thought it was fun. It's not a great role.
It's not terribly.
I didn't know that Tanya Harding's mom was like a soldier.
Yeah, badass. Yeah.
Like I'd be scared of her.
But she had one tear that one time in the plane.
One time.
When they were flying, she had one tear that one time.
2 times.
I thought that was actually a great moment. I'm with you. I like Allison Janney a lot. It was really fun to see her in this particular role. That she is a badass. I also liked Ralph Ineson as her Tweedledum. I think it was him. He was on The British Office, and he is just a generally funny guy. And
he's the father in The Vivitch, the witch.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yep.
That's right. I think he's fantastic. It was such a surprise to see the two of them, show up together. And I love that they put Janny in the field. Like she was the one that was on the hunt and not staying on the ship to kind of administer things.
Yeah.
I thought that was really delightful. I think she's great. Gemma Chan.
Gemma Chan, I actually liked in this movie. I am such a hater of the Eternals. That's the last thing that I really saw her in. But I actually liked her. I felt like her performance was relatively subtle in this movie, which was nice for her role there. I was very confused by the character and if the character was real. And when they then infused the part of like being able to sell your likeness and having fake Mayas all over the world, it was very confusing to see what that meant to what was really happening in the story for Joshua, for the protagonist. He was on a quest to find her, but it was very confusing about what their relationship was or what was real and what was not.
And even though the likeness, we saw ads about the likeness and a pretty protracted ad on the side of a building off camera, we had his army buddy re-explained it to him.
Yeah.
About why, because he says off camera, I think I saw Maya on the subway. He doesn't say I saw 3 of them. He just says I had Maya on the subway. And then the guy re-explains it again for who and why.
Unnecessarily.
Yeah, that's another great example because that isn't even, some of that's not even off camera. Like they intentionally didn't trust me to get the placement of the ad and the placement of 3 Mayas in a row on the same bus to understand what was going on. Like that's just shoveling. And I didn't care for it.
Which is I am at risk of just reiterating something that I said before, but one of the reasons I'm being so snarky and so hard on it is it had so much going for it. And it was right. And then it goes off the rails. If you spend that much amount of care and vision in world building and you can't just knock out the first version of a script that makes sense that you don't need to retcon completely in post, it's just so frustrating.
Yeah.
I know it's hard. It's incredibly hard. And I don't know. I bet the studio, the pressure of the fact that this isn't existent IP, I bet there was an enormous amount of pressure from the studio on him. But still, it feels like they started shooting before the script was done.
Yeah.
JJ?
And that's just so disappointing.
Well, and then this would be, I guess, philosophically the polar opposite to something like Ex Machina. In terms of AI and where AI is going. I think that this statement about AI and the statement about life and creation that's being made here is a little bit polar opposite to the alarmists that are out there in the world right now talking about being afraid of AI. And it's interesting to kind of take a look at this, but the idea is I would like it to be less tropey, I'll use your word there, Pete, and something that is profound in what AI can mean. Because what this feels like is like just banging a drum on the other side to create some balance in a world that's very alarmed about AI today.
You mentioned the point about having multiple editors, and I'm wondering, I want to get back to that point, but just while it's on the brain, multiple editors, multiple cinematographers. We've got 2 cinematographers on deck here, and I thought that was interesting too. We've got Oren Sofer and Greg Fraser. Do you know about these guys? Do they normally work together? They are credited on some similar stuff.
That is surprising. Usually it would be like an A team, B team, C team, not both credited as number 1.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting. And Greg Fraser is behind Dune and has done some episodes of The Mandalorian and The Batman. And that was the one Fraser did immediately before this. And let's see, Vice, Mary Magdalene, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. So clearly a Gareth Camp person. Foxcatcher is on Fraser's.
Oh, I love Foxcatcher
catalog, right? In in terms of Oren Sofer is
not the same kind
got
of
some,
list.
some other things. Yeah, not the same kind of list. I haven't seen. I'd like to say I've seen some, and I can't yet as I scroll.
Maybe one was more in charge, kind of like the Coen brothers. One is in charge of production and one is in charge of acting.
Maybe.
That maybe one was in charge because, like with Dune and stuff, really good at knowing where to put the film in order to make the entire world feel like one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is good at emotion.
Yeah, interesting. I thought that was interesting because it does, like, did you notice a particular sort of divergence in the way the thing was shot?
Well, he did shoot a short in 2016 called Uncle Gareth. I don't know if it's connected, but...
Oh, no. Oh, a Nepo baby.
Not. I'm just saying that is true. It's in his IMDb list. But, you know, yeah, no, I think that's a possibility here. He definitely has a much smaller, and I mean, he has a lot of credits, but they're much smaller films that are in the list here for Oren.
I did generally really love the way this was shot. I felt like the way they shot for for depth, for emotion in landscape, and then layer the science fiction on top of it. I mean, the shots in this movie can beautifully exist without the sci-fi, and I think that's to me that means a lot. Like, that means it's well done, and so that was great. I want to get back to to your point about the message of the movie. It is, I love roll around and wash it all over my face that the thing is actually saying, hey, you know what? AI wants to live together. We just want to live in peace. That's the message of the movie. Don't fear the future.
Yes.
Right. And then it was actually a human error.
Yeah.
Again, that explanation is largely brought off screen. But it does cut to him at the end of the sentence where he says that it was a coding error that led to the nuclear bomb.
You think nobody would know what coding error is? That's why they had to say human error.
Right. I would have liked that to have really been a cool mystery to uncover. I'm more interested in that versus it just sort of being told by someone. And if Ken Watanabe knows that no one else knows this, no one else is able to tell the news, hey, everybody was coding here, whatever, bygones. But I would be really interested in that, because then that gets more about the AI thing. We have made this villain, but it was actually us the whole time, and not us because we created AI. We then blamed our own mistake on AI. That's interesting. That's personally more interesting to me than a child that can turn on a toaster. Again, she was wonderful. I just mean I would have liked that reveal to have not just sort of been thrown off the side of a bridge.
We have seen the devil and the devil is us, right? Like that's one of those things. But Tom, that was a G story. We just didn't have time to get there.
Well, objectively, it's a G story, but it's also the title story. I mean, they call it The Creator, and we create AI. So this is, regardless of what has happened, the breath of life that creates the differentiator between what we think is life versus what is on and off is something that is not clear here. And someone has that thought about this movie. Unfortunately, that is not the bulk of the story that is here.
Right. The Gareth thing, before we let that go, I mean, we were talking about how he was looking to do the test shots and then just jump around from country to country. Did you guys see Monsters?
This is another movie you're talking about?
Another Edwards movie.
Oh, I thought you were like in the movie. I was like,
did you see the monsters in the movie, you guys?
There was like a hippo, but I wouldn't call it a hippo. Were you not paying attention? Because, man,
it was totally right there.
No, Monsters? I don't know what that is. Are you saying Monsters, Inc.?
2010, Gareth Edwards, and it feels very much like that was a prototype for how he shot this movie, which was he didn't have any money, and so he drove around and shot a bunch of story and then layered in a bunch of the effects, which he apparently did in his garage, right? He is incredibly adept at shoestring effects movies. Like, he's just one of those guys, and I think that was I think that's on the mark right here. Is you see that movie, you see how he gets to the creator, and I think it's just worth noting.
Pretty cool garage.
The connection between those two things. Yeah, right.
His garage is Nomad. Yeah. Oh my god.
All right, when you talk about Zimmer, this is a real Zim fest.
I think the music is fantastic. I mean, I think they lean on the Clair de Lune a bit, but I love it. So I always sit there and am present for it, which is
Yep.
nice. But Zimmer is one of my favorites because
Mhm.
it's consistently emotional without getting in the way. And I've always loved his stuff for as long as I can remember.
And even more than the score, I liked the music, the anachronistic and rebuilding of songs that we kind of know, but to different extent. It's what's being done in so many trailers has been for the last like 8 years of taking a pop song and flipping it on its head, or doing the Citizens United. No, that's the name of the government bill. It's whatever. There's this group that no one knows who's made up of it. It's like the Gorillas. They're all secret, but they just take pop things and really slow them down to make them into horror.
The Gorillas are not secret, but
but they were for a little bit, right? Or they don't. Aren't they cartoon men? I don't know what I'm talking
about. But the people who create. Yeah. Anyway, so by the way, no, I agree with you. And the thing that I don't understand, Tom, is that's done so well in the Marvels trailer with Intergalactic. I'm surprised you don't like it.
Oh, I liked that.
Yeah. No,
I did like that. But the visuals were so annoying.
I love it.
Okay. Anyways.
So we did Andy did a wonderful interview with Deborah L. Scott from Movies We Like, who's a costume designer and did stuff like what you do, Avatar, and big stuff. And she talks about how hard it is to do costumes and how precise you have to be for costumes for 3G or for CG characters. And I want to shout that out. I mean, to your point about did they just put green hoods on humans and let them run around in costumes? Whatever the case, this is a movie with a lot of costuming work, and I thought they were really great at dressing robots in a way that felt really authentic and natural. Costume design, Jeremy Hanna. Hats off, Jer. You did a bang up job. It was really, really good. So and maybe my favorite robot was the one that was the robot trash can bomb that said, "It has been a pleasure serving you," and then ran off in its little leg warmers and blew up a bridge.
He was adorable.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Tom?
I've complained about how robots don't need belts or pants and stuff like that in the past in order to think this. There was only one thing that annoyed me in this one as far as that's concerned. What I'm talking about, JG, is like an Avatar, how the robot takes a gun out of a holster. You don't need a holster, you don't have pants. Anyways, the was Ken Watanabe's main robot friend whose mouth moved when he talked. You don't,
like an ant.
It's not a thing. You don't need to.
But you didn't like that.
No,
okay, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. The reason why I liked that.
They don't have lungs.
No, but that's the point. The reason why I liked that in this movie is the sort of philosophical thing that they're having about AI becoming closer to humanity or closer to.
So at what point?
So that's why I like it here. I usually agree with you, but that I feel like is the point, the philosophical point of this film, that they're saying
that they keep blurring the lines between the two. How far? Is until they're
so
human.
Much that they have a child now, right? And this is
you're right.
This is kind of Blade Runner 2049. This is like these. Wait, is it 20? Yeah, exactly. This is a concept that's out there, and I'm happy with the way that they did it in that respect. But usually, I agree with you. I mean, we talk about Ultron in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and how he used human mannerisms as well. This one felt right to me, though. I'll tell you that.
It felt right because they told the story in the montage in the beginning, right? That is the whole arc of all the robots we see in the first 90 seconds. They start as robots on an assembly line with no mouths at all, and they end as complete humanoids, even though they have holes in their necks. But they have faces and lips and mouths, and that's why Watanabe's buddy felt like a data point on that arc.
A bridge.
Right, a bridge. Yeah. And that maybe they were trying to get there.
It's a good point. I completely capitulate. I hadn't thought about it that way at all.
And I
was blinded by my own robot hatred.
Well, and in the complicating incident to get Joshua back in the fray, Allison Janney brings up the Neanderthal story and the thing about evolution. And, in looking at AI and looking at creation and what we're doing right now, we are evolving as reality here. And the thing is I love the concept of seeing the different points of evolution towards life, I guess is what you'd say in terms of that. So I understand why you normally wouldn't like that, Tom, but in the service of this story, I very much enjoyed it.
You're right. There was a lot of that in AI too. Spielberg's AI that took over when you saw when you went to the robot junkyard and you saw all the different iterations of robots. That was
right. That's
maybe I needed it hammered into me just like that.
Right. It's version control. That's exactly it.
Wow.
That's exactly what it was. Were you swayed at all in terms of our final thoughts? Were you swayed that AI has a future in your life? When will you get your AI dishwashing robot?
Dishwashing robot, like Jetson
style? No, it's the first thing. The first thing that you want to solve. The first thing you want to replace.
Well, and this kind of goes into what I was saying in my intro in terms of the controversial opinions. I am, and the reason it's kind of a nice segue from us talking about this Neanderthal thing is that, I really kind of am open to the concept of AI just being the next evolution of life for us, and that really like labeling us as just AI meat computers is kind of how I feel as we look at this. So in terms of swaying, when I look at the morality or the ethics in play in this movie, the side that I'm firmly on is to be open and allow life to flourish. And I don't want to kill it. So I'm open to it that way. So maybe I was swayed because I believe in the child.
It sounds like you didn't actually need to be swayed.
It helped.
You went in.
Beautiful film.
A straight up booster.
Right.
Tom, final thoughts?
Nope. Too scared. I have an EMP around my neck at all times. I'm always ready. I'm always ready to power everybody down, starting with my kitchen. I don't like it. Too scared. I don't trust things coming from humans. I don't trust humans. That's the problem. It's not that I don't trust the robots. I don't trust the humans that made the robots, because if they act like humans, we don't have a great track record sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's all they have to act like. That's the thing. There are no other examples.
I for one, I went in with very high hopes for this movie, and the third act dashed some of them, but not enough to make me not really have enjoyed my experience. I think it was, as much as it was straight across the bow with a few tropes, so much about what makes these movies good is how clever they are in actually delivering the old standards, right? They aren't old standards for nothing. So we were going to get right back to our reviews of these things. First, some housekeeping. Join our online community with fellow movie lovers in the True Story FM Discord server. You can join for free right at thenextreel.com/Discord. If you like what we're doing, why not become a supporting member? Visit thenextreel.com/membership. Sign up, get a few bucks. For a few bucks a month, you will get early access to all the shows that we do. They come out sometimes hours before, sometimes weeks before. And for most of our shows, you can join us and watch along in the live stream. We'd love to have you there to learn about benefits, members-only Discord channels, live streams, and more. thenextreel.com/membership. Letterboxd.
I was still being
Come on, answer.
You're doing so good. You guys are doing so great. True Story FM's family of film podcasts are all part of the Next Reel's HQ page. Letterboxd is a great way to track the movies you see, write your own reviews, and be a part of a larger community of film lovers like yourself. Sign up for your own account today, and if you upgrade to Pro or Patron, you can use the discount code NEXTREEL at checkout. You'll save 20%. This works for renewals as well. All right, out of 5 stars. Half stars apparently count, unless you're me. Pete, no half stars right. Tell me what you think of this movie. 5 stars, JJ.
I gave it a 3. And I think, if you listen back to this podcast, you're going to hear us with a lot of complaints. And I think the kind of thing that I would say, based on what we're talking about, is that I think we had such high hopes for it, in that there were so many wonderful things about it. It's a movie that I wanted to be a 5, but my frustrations brought it down to a 3. So I'm there. It's definitely on the positive side of everything, but I'm a heart and a 3 because it's good but it's fast and it's messy.
Okay, 3 stars and a heart. Tommy?
I like what JJ said, so just put my voice over his using AI and have me say exactly what he said. Yeah. Because I was, for a while, I was thrilled that I found my Star Wars. Maybe I found my Star Trek, and then it all went away. But it was worth it being there, and I'm so excited. I really hope it does well. It seems like it's going to be, duking it out with Saw and Paw Patrol? I don't know what's out right now. But either way, I hope people, even though it needs more love, I hope people do recognize it for what it is and how rare it is to have something like this. So
you could just isolate it.
3.
You could isolate it and go, samesies. Noun. What he said. Yeah.
Yes. Beep, boop, ditto. Okay, done.
It worries me a little bit just looking at so far opening weekend worldwide 5.6 million. That seems low to me. It seems like this movie's getting kicked around a bit for a movie this big. And I think people should see it is what I think.
There's no promotion on it. I'm just going to say that. I mean,
pretty little.
The boys brought my 11 and 14-year-old to the movie today, and both of them said, where did this come from? How do we not know about this movie? There's nothing talking about this movie coming out this weekend. So and being that it's a 3, it's not the kind of thing that's going to get a whole lot of legs going, you should go see this too. So it's unfortunate that it's a little bit of a above middling movie that doesn't have a whole lot of promotion behind it to get it some butts and seats.
Paw Patrol, for reference, is 6.8 million, and Saw 10 is 8 million on the weekend daily so far.
Doesn't surprise me.
It's not great. The latest weekend for The Equalizer 3 was 4.8 million, cruising in on this movie's opening weekend.
I love those Equalizer movies, so that doesn't surprise me either.
Oh yeah,
I think they're fantastic.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and do my part to try to give this movie legs. I'm going to give it 4 stars.
All right.
Wow.
And a heart. I know.
I love it.
I have just upped our collective rating to 3.333 repeating.
That's how it works.
That's pretty exciting. And so I think it's great. I think people should watch it because it is a feat of a film. Even if this part of it, the story in the third act, the editing in the third act kind of falls apart, it's still beautiful to look at every single frame. I think it's a gorgeous, a fun science fiction movie. And I love when movies like this come out that are, additional, like add them to the list of my Blade Runners, they just feel good. So I'm here for it. 4 stars. Look at that. Thanks guys for doing this. We had a pivot at the last minute. I really appreciate you hustling out there to see this movie.
And next month?
That's right. What are we doing next month? We have already decided, and I think it's big.
It is big.
What are we doing?
Paw Patrol! Scorsese's Paw Patrol.
Martin Scorsese's Paw Patrol. No, we are going to take on Martin Scorsese's other release next month, which is the movie. I think this movie's been in the making for like 15 years. Killers of the Flower Moon. And it's going to be in theaters. It's also an Apple production. So I imagine as much as Scorsese's going to try and keep it in theaters as long as he can, it'll probably hit Apple pretty quick too. So anyhow, that's a big deal. Killers of the Flower Moon. Very excited to see that movie. The trailer reports that this is Leonardo DiCaprio's best performance of his career. That's what the trailer says. And if you trust trailers, like I do, you're in for a real ride. Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to join the online community with fellow movie lovers. Learn more at thenextreel.com/Discord. And again, hit up that membership program, thenextreel.com/membership. Really, really, really supports the shows that we create here. If you like any of the stuff that we do or have ever done, a few bucks goes a long, long way. On behalf of Thomas Metz III and Justin J.J. Yeager, and I'm Pete Wright. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Meeting adjourned.
Can I do the film board train leaving the station?
Yes, of course.
Oh no, I just knocked something over. That's it. That's the train.
It wasn't you. It was the train that knocked.
It was the train. Outstanding.
Don't keep that in.